Hi, I'm Norman Bridwell. You may not know my name, but I'll bet you know my dog. I write the books about Clifford the Big Red dog. And I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about writing books, illustrating books, and letting you know what it's like to be an author. I think a lot of children, when they read a book or they look at the art in a book, they think of the people that do this kind of work as special or unusual people. They don't think it's something they can do themselves. I want you to see today that the people that write books and illustrate books are people just like you. If you like to use your imagination, if you like to draw, if you enjoy these things and work at it, someday you might be writing and illustrating books. You do more writing now in school than we did when I was a boy. When I was a kid, we never were told to use our imagination in school. We didn't create characters or stories. We would write reports on how much coal came from Kentucky or how much cotton from Tennessee, something like that. But we never were told to imagine things. I did it anyway, but I did it going to school and going home. I spent all of that time walking along, making up the stories of imaginary people, imaginary pets. And when I got home at night, I would sit down and I would do the stories in pictures. I didn't do it in words. I drew pictures because I wanted to be an artist. I grew up to be an artist. I went through high school and then to an art school. And I went to New York City to work. And when I got there, I found that there were a lot of people who were very good artists, and I had to spend a lot of time looking for work. In 1962, about 25 years ago, I was trying to find work as a book illustrator. I always liked the artwork in children's books. When I read them to my friends' children, I would say to myself, gee, that looks like that would be fun to do. So I did some sample drawings and paintings of my artwork, and I took my samples to some of the places that print the books. I went to about 20 publishers, and I was turned down every place I went. Nobody liked my artwork. One lady said, you know, you're not very good. I don't think anybody's going to ask you to illustrate a book. But she said, some people write the stories and do the art too. She said, why don't you try writing a story? And if somebody buys the story, then you can do the art to go with it. I hadn't done any writing before. I didn't think of myself as a writer, and I didn't think too much of myself as an artist, since nobody seemed to like my art. But I went home, and I sat down, and I took my samples of art that I'd done, and I spread these paintings out, and I looked through them, and one of them sort of gave me an idea for a book. I had done a drawing, a painting really, of a little girl with a great big red dog. To me, it was, I guess it was based on the kind of dog I'd wanted when I was a little boy. See, when I was a kid, I tried to ride a horse one time, and it didn't work out. The horse and I didn't get along at all well together. And after that, I always thought if I had a nice, gentle dog as big as a horse, I'd have the perfect pet. So I used to pretend when I was a kid that I had a great big dog, and I still thought of him when I grew up because he was the dog that I had painted in this sample painting. And I looked at this painting and I tried to think, well, what would it really be like owning a dog that you could ride like a horse? And as I made up the story, I thought, well, if he's fun being the size of a horse, what if he's the size of a house? So I made the dog larger. He's red because when I did my sample painting, I had a jar of bright red poster paint on my drawing table. And to make this dog a little bit different, to make him sort of special, so he wouldn't be like all the other great big dogs in the world, I made him the color of a fire engine. And it took me 3 days to make up the story, do the drawings, and my wife came in, she saw what I was doing, and she said, what are you going to name that dog? And I said, well, I'm going to call him Tiny. I think that's a funny name for a great big dog. My wife said, that is a stupid name for a great big dog. She said, you don't want to call him that. I didn't think the book would ever be accepted, so I said to my wife, well, dear, you can name the dog anything you like. It doesn't really matter. And she named the dog Clifford after an imaginary playmate that she had when she was a little girl. My wife had this little invisible boy who lived at her house, and she claimed he was there. And anything that got broken or anything that went wrong was blamed on Clifford. So we named the dog Clifford. The little girl we named Emily Elizabeth because that was my daughter's name. My daughter was just a tiny baby at the time I wrote the first book. She was about a year old. And we gave them these names. I took the book to one of the places I'd been with my artwork, and I left it and I forgot it. I completely went out of my mind because I didn't think anything would happen. You know, it's not easy to get a book published. There are a lot of people trying. There are thousands of books done every year, and out of those thousands of books, very few are taken. I expected no luck at all with this, but I was very surprised when about 3 weeks later, Scholastic Books called and they said, "We have a book here called Clifford the Big Red Dog. We'd like to publish it." My voice went from something like this way up to something like this because I was shocked. I simply couldn't believe that they would like it. Now, since then, I have done 39 other books that have been accepted, and I've done about 90 books that have been rejected. That's something you get used to if you're a writer or an artist, is that people don't like everything you do. You may sometime do a drawing or write a story, and you have fun doing it, you enjoy it, but when your friends or your teachers look at it, they don't especially like it. When that happens to you, you simply say, "Well, I did the best I could. I'll go back and try again." That's what I have to do. I do stories, I send them in, they don't like them, I go back and try again. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the work that goes into doing a book. A lot of children write to me and they say, "Could you make me a book?" As if I could sit down and do a book just for them. It takes a lot more work than that. Some books, this book, the first Clifford the Big Red Dog, took 3 days to get the drawings and the words down on paper, so it was a book. Some books take a year. Most of them take 2 or 3 months. I can spend 2 or 3 months working on a story, doing the drawings, getting the words the right way, the way I like them, and I take it to the editor, and she looks at it very quickly and says, "No, it's no good." Now, one time, I spent 3 months working on Clifford, a story about Clifford, and I was going to go take the book to the editor, and the night before I was to see her, I very quickly did another book about a witch. Some reason I thought I should have a choice, to give the editor a choice. My wife had read an article in a magazine about the actress Margaret Hamilton, who played the part of the Wicked Witch in the movie The Wizard of Oz. You've all seen quite a few times, I'm sure. And the article said that Margaret Hamilton was always bothered because people would remember her as a wicked, witchy kind of person, when actually she was a very nice lady who loved children. She was a kindergarten teacher before she became an actress. And it bothered her to be always thought of as a mean kind of witch. So I thought to myself, I'm going to do a story about a witch that only does nice things for children. Nothing scary, nothing mean. I did it in one night, did all the drawings and all the words, took it to the publisher. She took the book done in one night and threw out the Clifford book I worked on for 3 months. And this book sold more copies than any other book that I ever did. So when I do something, I never know how it's going to be accepted. Sometimes I'm surprised. I was this time. I'm going to show you the steps I go through to get a book prepared to be published. Now, a lot of you, when it comes to doing artwork or writing stories, you're a little impatient. You think that you should write it out, and the first way you write it, that's the way it's going to be. Or you do some artwork, and you think you do one drawing, and that's it. And you get sort of upset if the drawing doesn't turn out very well, or as well as you'd like. There are very few artists who do one drawing, and that is the finished drawing. I go through many steps, and I'll show you what I do to get a book. First, I have to get the idea. Now, where do ideas come from? Ideas come from other books that I've read. Ideas for Clifford stories come from things that my dogs did when I was a little boy. Ideas come from letters that I get from you. Sometimes children send me ideas for things they'd like to see Clifford do. When I get the idea, and I know I'd like to see Clifford tell a certain kind of story, I first of all do very, very quick, very rough sketches. And I'll do an awful lot of these. I'll do page after page of just very rough little drawings that don't look like much at all, and I scribble some words in there so I remember what's supposed to be happening and what words will go with it. And I do a lot of these until I feel I've got enough to start putting the book together, putting the story together. Now, the story can't just be a series of drawings. Things have to happen naturally. A story has to flow. If you sit down to write a story, you've got to say to yourself, well, if he throws the ball over the fence, what's going to happen to it? Is it going to hit something? Is it going to hit somebody? Is it going to bounce back? You've got to have things flow in a natural way, sort of like it happens in real life, but you can play around with it. It doesn't have to be exactly the way it would really happen. But you have to have some sort of flow of the story. I get all these very quick sketches, and I have an idea then of what Clifford's going to do, and for every page of the book, I do a very quick pencil drawing that will give me an idea of where Emily is, where Clifford is, what he's doing. I take this, and I get all these done, and now I have to do more complete drawings that will be used to show to the editor, because the editor has to have things made pretty plain so they know what the story's about. I trace the drawings that I've just done. You see, I've flipped this one over. I thought it would be better facing the other way, so that Clifford is facing the other way, looking into the book. And I do a very, not perfect, but a better drawing for every page. I've done these, and I've written the words and put the words underneath. This book isn't even complete yet, so I don't have all of them ready. He's taking a bath, and he slips off the cake of soap. So Emily decides to give him a bath in a soup bowl where he'll be safe, and then she tells her father what she used the soup bowl for. You see, you put the story together, and you have to think so that sometimes when you turn a page, you get a little surprise. You don't know what her father's going to think until you turn the page here. You have to think of pacing the book, getting it so that you have some surprises coming up. I put the book together like that. I send it to the editor. She'll look through it. Sometimes she goes through it very quickly, says, no, it's not a book. Other times she'll say, yes, it can be a book, and she'll return it to me. And now I'm going to do the art that's used to print the book. I take these drawings out of the book, I put white paper over them, and I trace them, and I do the art that will be used to print the book. These are ink drawings, and I've done them as carefully as I can, the way I want you to see them in the book. And I have put a piece of paper over, and I show the person who's going to color the book where Clifford will be read, so we don't have any mistakes on what's part of Clifford and what isn't. See, I don't color the books. There's another artist that does that. And they take my drawings and they copy them on watercolor paper, and another artist does a watercolor painting that will have all of the colors of the book. Like that. You can see that they have put in a yellow fence and green grass and a blue car. And the artist does a painting for every page. Now their paintings then are photographed and made into printing plates that will print red, yellow, and blue ink so that you get these colors in the book. And after their colors are printed, my black line work is printed over the top, and that makes the art that you see in the finished book. It takes me 10 days to do my drawings. It takes the artist 5 weeks, 5 or 6 weeks to do the watercolor paintings, and it takes 3 months to print the book. So it isn't a very quick thing. It isn't something I can do overnight and send to you. Now, a lot of children say, how do you do the cover? Well, the cover's done the same way. For every book, I do 4 different covers, 4 different ideas, and I do them in pastel or colored pencil and send them to the publisher, and they pick the one they like and throw out the other 3. And I take the one that they like, and I do the same thing. I do an ink drawing of all the black lines, and then the other artist does the coloring. The cover is always done first so that it can be printed up and they use it to advertise the book before the book is even completed. Now, some of the ideas that you send to me are very, very good ideas. I don't know where you get them. One of the best that you ever had was, what was he like when he was a puppy? Clifford. I never thought of that. I thought of Clifford as a great big dog. I did 5 books where he was a great big dog, and I start to get letters saying, well, some places are a great big mother dog and a great big father dog. Was Clifford the size of a full-grown St. Bernard when he was born, or was he an ordinary little puppy with ordinary mother and father? Well, I think he started out small, and because of your letters, I did a book called Clifford the Small Red Puppy. And I'm glad you thought of it, because of the Clifford books, I think this one turned out fairly well. I don't like everything I've done. Some of the books I've done, I look at them when they're printed, and I wish I'd done something else, but I guess it helps not to be too satisfied with your work, because then you try to improve. You try to make the next one better, since you can't change what's done. Now, that's only one of the ideas that you've had. A lot of you wanted Clifford to go to school. I've tried that twice. It didn't turn out to be very funny. The editor turned it down. A lot of you wanted to see Clifford go into outer space. I've tried that. The editor didn't like outer space stories, but I still think it's a funny idea. Imagine Clifford having to put on a spacesuit, and imagine what kind of a rocket it would take to get a dog that size into outer space. It'd be a pretty good rocket, wouldn't it? But the thing is to have fun. Don't worry about what somebody else is going to think about what you write or what you draw. You can't do it to please other people. You've got to do it to please yourself. Oh, there are going to be times when your teacher says, we're going to write about a certain thing. Well, then you write about it. But if you have a choice, if you're going to write just for fun, write about something you care about. If you like horses, write about horses. If you like dogs or cats, write about that. If you like trucks and earth-moving machinery, write about that. I don't do books about horses because I don't draw horses very well. So I stick to things like dogs and cats, things that I like. Now, I did one book I had a lot of fun with. It was called Clifford Goes to Hollywood. Now, you know, in real life, when people go to Hollywood and get to be famous, sometimes they change. People tend to get a little stuck up and snooty, and they dress in a flashy way. And I wonder if Clifford would change if he got to be a big movie star. I hope not, but let's see what Clifford the Star is like. You know, when you do a drawing, or you write a story, and you put those words and lines of the drawing down on paper, you do something that nobody else in the world can do exactly the way you do it. It's a very special thing that you do. Have faith in what you can do. Believe in your ability. A lot of you are very shy about your artwork, and you draw and you have fun doing it, but you're always certain that you're not good enough. Don't feel that way. I bet you're better than you think. A lot of you have somebody in your class who's better at drawing than you are. Or you're going to have somebody in your class who's better at writing stories. That happens all through life. There's always somebody that's better than we are. There's always somebody who gets more praise. But that's not really important. It doesn't matter if somebody's better than you. It doesn't matter if you're not the best in the class. What really matters is how much you enjoy what you're doing and how hard you try. If you give up, if you say, well, so-and-so is so much better, I'm not going to bother with this, you might be cheating your friends out of a chance of enjoying the things you can do. Keep working at it, please. Now, some of the other ideas that you've had, a lot of you have ideas for the way Clifford should dress up for Halloween. I always like it when you say dress him as a ghost because that's so easy to do. I really save a lot of magic markers. And it gives me a chance to rest because the drawing goes very fast. If you say make him look like a zebra, that's another matter. Come to think of it, I made him look like a zebra in one book, and it took a lot longer than this to draw. But I think he makes a good ghost because you can do it in a very few lines. And you even have time left over to do a couple of other ghosts. Now, some of you would like to see him be a cowboy. That seems to be a popular idea. Now, I'm trying to remember what kind of hats cowboys are wearing these days. And please forgive me if I'm wrong, because where I live, we don't see many cowboys. So I'll have to go by my memories of the cowboys in the movies. And I'll dress Clifford as a movie cowboy. I guess he's got fringe here, hasn't he? A little bit of... Can't have a cowboy without some kind of a 6-gun on his hip. Should I put a mustache on him? Let's save that for something else. We'll put the mustache on another one. Because a lot of you would like to see Clifford as a devil. I don't know why. I haven't seen the devil around lately, so I have to again go by what he looked like when I was a kid. But a lot of children say, let's see Clifford as a devil. I know he's got horns. And I know he's got eyebrows. Now we can use that mustache that I left off the cowboy. Because the last time I saw a picture, he had that. And a cape. And a pitchfork. And his feet are a little different, aren't they? Now, the main thing I want to point out is that this should be fun. Expressing yourself, telling a story, doing a drawing that makes people laugh or teaches people something can be a tremendous amount of fun. And it's not the kind of thing that a lot of people can make a living at. I'll be perfectly honest with you there. You're not all going to run out and make a living as writers or artists because it isn't easy. The thing is that one of you looking today could be one of the best artists or one of the best writers in the country. And you don't even know it yet. It might be 3 or 4, 5, 10 years from now that you start to develop this way. And I hope you will keep working at it because it can be an awful lot of fun. I want to thank you for letting me take this time, and I hope that all of you now know that you're writers and you're illustrators too. Thank you.